This new Titan Void build lets you melt all adders in the game regardless of being 30 under the recommended power level in a Master Loss sector, the second hardest activity in the game. You'll be suppressing and weakening enemies constantly while getting buffed weapon and ability DPS with infinite abilities, as well as constantly getting health back for just shooting enemies. Yes, just shoot them. In most cases you just cannot die running and gunning. In a Master activity though, you're going to have to play it a tiny bit slower, but that won't stop you from melting them down to the ground. Now this build can be optimized for multiple exotics, so I will go over all the exotics that you can use with this build, whether you want to have infinite abilities or you want to melt a boss with a single punch to the face. Now Wormgod Caress is most likely going to be disabled for day 1 raid, so enjoy it while it lasts, but in this video we'll be going over the setup of the build, how to use it and all that good stuff. Now this video is sponsored by my guys over at Awaya. They offer Destiny 2 Silver at a much cheaper rate. If interested, see the details down below along with my discount code. And now without further delay, be sure to leave a rating, comment, subscribe and share for more, and now let's cause some void chaos. Now as always, if you enjoy these build videos and you want to see more top builds for Destiny 2 Witch Queen, feel free to view that full playlist down below for more, as I do cover builds on a weekly basis. And if you have a build you want me to check out, leave a comment below or join our Discord server, also linked below. Now with this build there are multiple exotics you can use for a variety of different things. The Wormgod Caress and most exotics that buff mainly damage can be used to pretty much break the build and cause some serious damage, which will most likely get patched, but later in the video I will go over all the exotics that you can use with this build to make it pretty lethal for the type of playstyle that you're looking for. For this build though, we'll have infinite abilities. I say infinite because the cooldown is so fast that you don't really wait for an ability to recharge when you're ready to use one. So we will be using our abilities to buff our other abilities, which will then empower our weapons. Chain void explosions while getting health when shooting enemies, sort of like Devour, except you don't need to get the final blow to get the health back. But overall, this build is just going to be an ad clearing beast. It's going to be so effective you'll hardly notice a difference between a normal activity and say a legend or master activity, because the amount of damage your weapons and abilities will do while always getting health back is just insane. You could say it's broken, which kinda is, but at the same time, if you're in a master activity, you're still going to die just as quick. So you do have to play it slightly slower and safer. Now how the build works is you'll first use an ability on an enemy or a bunch of enemies. This will empower your other 2 abilities while spawning a void elemental well. Then picking up that well will buff your weapon damage for 10 seconds and give you volatile rounds for 17 seconds, as well as giving you damage resistance. From there you'll go on a complete ad killing spree with your void weapons. When your volatile rounds buff ends, either place your barricade down to get your grenade back instantly and buff the other abilities damage, or use your melee. Either way, a melee or grenade final blow will spawn the next elemental well for you, and then you just repeat. You also got to remember you're suppressing and weakening enemies at the same time when you're using your abilities, so when you're fighting tougher adds or bosses, they literally can't do anything about it except sit there and let you kill them. It's just crazy how strong this build is for ad clearing, and guys honestly, this build is worth using for day 1 raid if you're going to be on ad control. This will make your life so much easier. So getting into the setup of the build, starting with the loadout, you want to run void weapons. A good void weapon to run is the funnel web. Amazing SMG, and I have covered this weapon in another video, so if you like to check that one out. For the full breakdown and god rolls, I will leave a card on screen to that in the top right, but your god roll that you'll want with this weapon is Subsistence and Frenzy. You can use other weapon types like a glaive or a fusion rifle like Null. As long as they are void weapons, then you'll be able to max out the efficiency of this build, and because we are going to be empowering those weapons using multiple buffs and debuffs, match game shields up to master won't be a problem at close range, because you can just melt them down and the enemies should be suppressed, so they can't really do much to you while you're working on them. The loadout I'm running for a legend and master loss sector is the Arbalist for anti-barrier champions, funnel web for ad clear with overload rounds, and a void rocket launcher. You'll be using the volatile flow mod with your energy weapon, which will make ad clearing like crazy. Now exotic weapons you can use in the energy slot are Lee Monarch. Graviton Lance could be worth using, but I haven't tried it out, and Lorentz Driver could be interesting for that extra damage. For your heavy, Deathbringer is a good choice, as well as Galley, which is a solar rocket, but it's one of the best exotics in the game and pretty much bypasses everything in the game regardless of buffs and debuffs. You can also use the Parasite, but again I haven't tested that one out, but I know from others using it, it is a pretty good weapon. For your exotic armor, we'll be using the Heart of Inmost Light for infinite abilities, and we'll get to this in just a moment, but the other exotics you can use are Wormgod Caress with a 1-2 punch shotgun, which will completely melt all mages and bosses in the game as of making this video, because that exotic currently is severely broken as hell, which will probably get nerfed, so use it while you can. But there are also Synthoceps, the Greaves and Armamentarium for extra grenades, great exotic that I use quite a lot myself. Moving to the subclass, we are a Titan Void subclass with Ward of Dawn, but you can use either, it doesn't really impact the build, but the Barricade will be a rally one, as it has a quicker cooldown, which means we'll be able to make more use of our exotic, and we will pair this with a Vortex Grenade or a Scatter Grenade, both are just as good. For the aspects, we have Controlled Demolition, where hitting a target with a Void ability or Volatile Explosion makes them volatile, and further DPS to a volatile target causes them to explode, which grants us and nearby allies health when they do explode near us. Which is why using an SMG for close range ad clearing is recommended, because the damage you keep chaining is just OP as hell. The second aspect we have is the offensive bulwark. While you have an overshield or inside a Ward of Dawn, your grenade recharges faster, and you have increased melee range and damage. And final blows with melee extend our overshield duration. You can go with Bastion if you want, which is also just as good, because you will get infinite overshields, but with our constant health when killing ads, it's not really needed. If I was going into a GM with this build though, I'd most likely use that one. But at the same time, I would also prioritize resilience at 100 to get that barricade back as quick as possible. Now for the fragments, we have Echo of Explosion to explode targets with our void abilities with a sweet +10 intellect. Echo of Exchange for grenade energy on melee kills. Echo of Undermining to weaken enemies with that grenade. And Echo of Remnants, where our grenade will last longer, but only use this if using the Vortex Grenade, which I strongly recommend you do. So back to the exotic, Heart of Inmost Light. This reads, using an ability, grenade, melee or barricade, empowers the other two. Empowered means the abilities have faster regen and do more damage, with barricades having extra HP. Great exotic for infinite abilities that works well with all Titan subclasses in the game, so if you're running an ability build, this is usually the go-to. As for the main mods, we will be using the Elemental Well mods with a bunch of artifact ones, and the very first mod on the list here is Elemental Ordnance. This is where defeating a combatant with a grenade spawns an elemental well that matches your subclass element type, and then using Well of Tenacity, picking up that well will reduce the damage we take from combatants for a short time, which is 11 seconds. Now with Elemental Ordnance, we'll also be using the cheap melee Wellmaker mod from the artifact, which will spawn a void elemental well when getting a final blow with our powered melee ability. This is just to help us a little more with getting those wells, as we are going to be relying on those wells to make ad clearing a lot better. Next up we have Font of Might, also from the artifact, where picking up an elemental well that matches our subclass energy type will give our void weapons a bonus to weapon damage for a short time. We also have Volatile Flow, which that same well will grant our void weapons volatile rounds, which is just stupidly OP for ad clearing. I mean, you could be running the worst and weakest void weapon in the game and still ad clear like it's nothing, because this is what is doing most of the work when paired with our void subclass fragments. Now for the normal mods, I've got double rocket launcher ammo finders for my heavy weapon. Then for the gauntlets we have grenade kickstart in our stasis armor, just to give our grenade that quick boost of energy when we use it, but we also have our champion mods that we may need with this. Then for the chest we have thermoshock plating for our 2-in-1 resist for solar and arc, along with our ammo reserve mod, which again you can swap to another resist mod if you want to double up on that solar and arc, as they do stack. Moving to the legs, we have Absolution for reduced ability cooldown when picking up those orbs lying around, along with our scavenger mod. And then lastly with the class we have Double Bomber. That sounds weird saying that. Try saying that fast 10 times. Anyway, this will reduce our grenade cooldown when using our class, which will do a lot right before using our grenade anyway, to get it back quicker, so this helps even more. If you really want, you can use some of the new class artifact mods like Lucent Finisher, which would be worth using in endgame PvE. This is the artifact setup I have currently, slowly getting there with the unlocks, but the main one you do want is of course that Volatile Flow. Now for the stats, start maxing out Discipline, then Recovery, and then if you can, resilient specifically for the faster barricade cooldown, which then means faster cooldowns for your grenade and melee. Now this build, honestly I have to say it's by far one of the best ad clearing builds in the game that actually works well in not just normal activities, but all activities in the game regardless of the difficulty. Since they released Void 3.0, the abilities for Void altogether have been way better, and that's mostly down to the aspects and fragments buffing them the way they do, like one of the fragments allowing your grenade to weaken enemies for example. The whole system of Void 3.0 itself is well designed, which makes this build perfect for endgame PvE. So guys, that is your new Titan Void ability build for the new Void 3.0 subclass in Destiny 2 Witch Queen Season of the Risen. Next you should check out the playlist for more top builds that you may be interested in for Season 16, and if you liked this one or found it useful in any way, then feel free to drop a thumbs up as it does help me out. And if you want to see more videos like this, then stick around on the channel and I'll see you guys over in that next video. Peace out guys.